Good morning, traders. Welcome to PremarketInfo.com. I'm Joel L. Connon.
And I'm Dennis Dick, broadcasting to you live from Benzinga in Detroit.
On today's show, we will look at Friday's market sell-off. Also, take a look at Apple in the pre-market as it continues to be under pressure. And finally, we'll take a look at the top S&P 500 components. Dennis, how was the weekend?
Weekend was good, Joel, but excited to get back at it today. We had that awesome sell-off on Friday. Obviously, the market trading up to 1432, catching a lot of participants, probably long. It was looking good after that jobs number. We traded up in the pre-market and then started to go for a vicious sell-off, though, in the regular session.
And now we are back at this all too familiar 1400 in the S&P level. We made a low overnight of 1402.50. We take out that level, Dennis. We're looking at the low from last week at 1393. Coming back on the upside, the overnight high was 1409.50. So we got to get through that in order to save another test of 1400.
I wouldn't be surprised if we do test it here today too. We've been down here multiple times. We talked about this area back in August. We talked about this area in September. We've come all the way back down from 1430 just on Friday. So why wouldn't it come through 1400? Try to trigger some stops. You know, those high frequency traders love to hit those stops. So it wouldn't surprise me if we did trade through 1400 to shake a few people out. If for whatever reason this market does continue the downward momentum and we start getting below 1390, I would get very nervous with my longs.
Okay, and leading the sell-off, the big dog, Apple Computer, trading down in the pre-market, trading right on Friday's low.
Yeah, Apple's not looking good here either in the pre-market, trading down just a couple of points, 574, but the follow-through pressure I'm not liking here. Obviously, the stock was very weak on Friday, selling off over 19 points, closing near the lows at 576.80. Stock 57 and then trading down here now 574.20. So I don't see a heck of a lot until 570, and then if we trade through that, you can look almost down to 560.
Yeah, well, also you have the low from June 28th there at 565.61. That should be a little bit of a cushion here, and also the double bottom from late July 25th and 26th at 570 even and 570.36. The GOOG monster, it held up very well on Friday.
Yeah, well, Google actually, we always talk about Apple and Google pairing together. A lot of people do trade these together. But the last few trading sessions, Google has held up relatively well. Obviously, Apple has not held up well, especially on Friday's session. And after the vicious sell-off there in Apple, you would have thought Google would follow suit. It didn't. So I'm liking that strength in Google. Google's put in a nice base in that whole 570 area that we talked about last week, or 670 area that we talked about last week. As long as it stays above there, I guess you can remain bullish the stock, but just the overall market sentiment and the overall Apple sell-offs makes me nervous really to own anything.
Yeah, we've been talking about the basing here right around 670. You've had the sell-off, and now you've had the consolidation there. So it's a slippery slope if you're buying this thing, ahead of that level, because really that's the major support. There's not going to be a lot in there until you get to those levels. The House of Mouse over the weekend released a new movie.
Yeah, they released Wreck-It Ralph there. Well, actually, this was their first weekend for Wreck-It Ralph, one of their 3D animated films. It was actually their best weekend for a 3D animated film ever, $49 million. So Disney actually is trading up here just a bit in the pre-market with that. $50.20 is where it just ticked to on only 600 shares, but often when Disney has a good movie, the stock does trade up usually the next day. So with the market down 3 or 4 points with fair value, it's nice to see Disney with a little bit of relative strength here.
Yeah, that stock was in the news last week. I know you're all excited because there's 3 new Star Wars movies coming out. But on that day, It popped up to 15 open high at 51.24, and then had a pretty good sell off down to 48.80. Looking at yesterday's low, 49.77 should be pretty good support. If we take that out, though, I'm looking to trade back down to $49. We've had some upgrades and some downgrades in the market. Things have been pretty quiet. Starting with an upgrade in Target.
Yeah, Target here got upgraded by JP Morgan. Stock is trading up in the pre-market, very light shares, only 200 shares have traded, so hard to say how much it's going to be up, but it is bid up at 63.21, so it's bid up 50 cents. Obviously, you look at that double top that we had just from last week at 64.23 and 64.19. That would be from the 26th and the 31st. So I look at those 2 days as obviously a critical area of resistance.
Yeah, 62.80 was the high in the pre-market so far, so we will keep an eye on that level. Along with some upgrades comes some downgrades, and Piper Jaffray here downgrading DuPont. Are they a little late to the party on this one?
I think they are late to the party. Obviously, there was a big sell-off there. I think that was earnings, wasn't it, Joe, when it sold off there 2 weeks ago? Regardless, it gapped down there 2 weeks ago. You can see it on the chart, the ugly gap down day from that 49 area down to 47. Basically opened at the high that day and kept going down. The stock has consolidated here for the last 6 or 7 trading sessions, but broke down through a new low on Friday. That's never good for the longs. Maybe Piper Jaffray was anticipating that the stock's breaking down. Now, close at 44.15 is trading down. 10,000 shares have traded too, so there's been a little bit of stock here go by. 43.85 is where it's trading at in the pre-market. Not looking good for DuPont longs.
Yeah, I'd use that 44.15 as a swing number. You had the low at 44.03 and then closed at 44.15. So it's definitely got to get back above that the close at least to have a chance to rally. Big sell-off here since $52. Going to the monthlies here to take a look at support. Back in December of last year, you had a low at 43.06. So over the longer term, you could be looking for DuPont to trade down to that 43 level. Picking up on some stocks from last week that we thought might have a little follow through from Mr. Icon messing around in Netflix here, but seems to be not really following through.
Yeah, Netflix trading down here in the pre-market on 3,500 shares, only traded at $75. But I mean, here's the stock. Obviously, had the ridiculous icon spike. These icon spikes often don't materialize. Obviously, at a 9.9% stake, so everybody's gambling on the side of Icon. And we know the stock spiked up to that 84.97 high, where it was up, and where an Icon disclosed his 9.9% stake there last week. It had 2 inside days the last 2 days, trading between basically 75 and 80. Obviously, those are the 2 critical areas to look at. If the stock starts breaking significantly below 75, there's not a heck of a lot until you get down to 70. If the stock reversed course and started to get above 80, then I might get bullish. But right now, it's not looking great for the Netflix longs, and I would not be surprised if this stock started to cave if it starts trading below 75.
Yeah, I mean, what really changed in the fundamentals of the company when Mr. Icon makes his disclosure? I mean, that the earnings don't change, the memberships don't change, but we've been talking about on this on several occasions. When the stock has a huge run up through an area, as Netflix did a few days ago, when it comes back down through that area, there's really not much support. I mean, you can't exactly say that it's going to go back down here and trade down to 65.55, but if you're lucky enough to pick this stock up, anywhere, the 55-60 area, would just take a look at some protective sell stops here, so you're not looking at a break-even trade right away here off the bat. That thing can really move. Moving on to some of the technical components in the S&P, we always like these multiple lows, and sure enough, we have one in ExxonMobil around $90.
Yeah, ExxonMobil here has flirted with this $90 pretty much for the past 5 trading sessions. It bottomed there on Friday at 90.
What do you call that? A quintuplet
Quintuple.
bottom?
Quintuple, I would call it. Quintuple? Quintuple?
Okay.
90.06 traded on Friday. 90.20 traded on Thursday. 90.11 traded on Wednesday. Then it actually broke through it on the Tuesday at 89.68. But call that whole $90 area major support. That low of the move from Tuesday at 89.68 needs to hold above there. We start cutting through there, and it could open up to the 88 area.
Yep, you have to respect that level as support until it takes it out. 80. There's also some lows supporting it around 89.40, but then you get into the old vacuum area here down under $88. It doesn't look like the S&Ps are really going to be nudging it in that direction. So just keep an eye at that $90 level. Stock that had earnings on Friday, and the street certainly did not like what Chevron had to say.
Yeah, well, actually, Chevron had earnings. I think it was a couple. Oh, no, it was Friday. You're right. I'm getting my days mixed up. But anyway, stock had broken down before that, obviously, back in early October when they had just given their guidance, which wasn't great. But then the stock actually did announce on Friday, and the stock did break down through that and made new lows there of the move and closed not that far off the lows either at 108.37. The follow through weakness is happening. It happened after hours. It was trading down around 108 on Friday. Does appear to be falling through. It's at 108.10, but offered at 108.01 here in the pre-market session. So if that stock starts breaking through that Friday's low of 107.57, I just don't see a lot of support below it.
Yeah, I mean, that stock, remember all those institutional sellers there when it got above 115, 116, 117? I mean, it really thickened up down there. Are you seeing any kind of institutional bids yet on this
No.
stock, or is still too early to tell?
Yeah, no, I'm not seeing much down there. I'd imagine if you got down to that 105 area, I think you'd have a few institutions sniffing around, but there's not much between this 107.50 and 105. So hard for me to, if you're trying to pick a bottom, I think you're early here. I wouldn't be surprised if things started to try to tick down in the next few days, down to that low we had in July, on July 25th of 105.28. So hard to say, but definitely it's just kind of the same story here as we're going through the show here today. A lot of stocks closed weak on Friday. You had this reversal day, and just I go on a tangent here, but when you get this overall reversal like that, where you had the overall S&P futures were strong, they were breaking out, so you were squeezing some shorts probably on Friday, and then all of a sudden the market starts to turn around, probably catches those shorts, or it doesn't catch, it catches those people that are long. So you had people basically, the shorts were probably squeezed out, so there's not a lot of people short the market, and then some people try to actually get long the market, and you probably catch those longs too, and it was such a vicious sell-off. I think you've got some people caught long this market now, which makes it scary when you're coming into support.
Okay, also moving on to another component. Once again, Wells Fargo is finding itself again at this 33.50 level. Multiple lows in that area, as you can tell looking on the chart. Under this 33.50 level, you have a vacuum down to 32.83. Once again, you have to respect that level as support until it's taken out.
Yeah, this Wells Fargo, I can give you some props there from last week. You were all over this saying this had support between 33.50 and 33.60. Well, if you look at last week's lows, I think you said that on Tuesday or Wednesday. Last week's lows, 33.66, 33.65, 33.73. 33.59, 33.64. So you had all those lows right in that area. Obviously, the stock is finding support. I don't know who's buying it in that area, but there's somebody buying it in that area because it's been an accumulation pattern. If it starts to take out 33.50, I would imagine that buyer, whoever is in there, is done, and then the stock could actually start to break down. But I mean, until it starts to break through 33.50, I guess you got to remain bullish.
Well, I think that your buddy Warren, I heard he was
You think it's Warren?
Yeah, he's adding to his position, and don't quote me on that. Speaking of stocks that been holding up during this market sell-off, the financials really haven't been getting wrecked like the tech. Look at this Goldman Sachs chart here, still bumping up here in the upper 120s.
Yeah, Goldman Sachs has held up relatively well here. A lot of your financials have. When I was looking through the charts on the weekend, I was surprised at how many financials have held up pretty well. Goldman did close weak, closed near the low of the day, 123.25, but overall here it's still kind of obviously holding up much better than stocks like Apple, which have completely broken down. So I guess if you're looking, aside from AIG, even if you looked at a chart like Bank America, Joel, BAC, that stock's actually up near the highs too and was breaking out on Friday. Actually closed up on the day on such a weekday on Friday, which was impressive. So, I mean, these financials actually still look okay.
Yeah, that Bank America, I mean, it's has been struggling with this $10 level. We did sneak up above 10.10 back in March, but since then haven't been back up to that level. 9.97 has been the recent high. Let's keep an eye on that. Maybe get a couple closes over here over $10, and maybe Bank America can make another move. Okay, Dennis, we got to take a look at the S&Ps here. So far, every time it's come down to this $1,400 level, you've been sticking your nose out to go long. Here we are again. What do you think?
You want to know something? Just like what I was saying before, I have. Every time it's come down to these 1390s, I've been a buyer here, and I've made a lot of good trades out of here. I've probably played this area 5 or 6 times. I was playing it back in August and September. I played it again last week off this area. But the one thing that has me nervous, and I'll just reiterate what I just said earlier, the one thing that actually has me nervous is that we closed weak on Friday, and the way we broke out early in the session makes me think that there's actually some people caught long. When we were approaching this area before, it was on these sustained down moves where you had long shaken out, you had shorts in the positions. I don't think there's a lot of people short this market from a short-term perspective right now because of the breakout day that we had early on Friday. So that makes me scared that there actually, if there's people long and not a lot of people short, that the market usually tries to punish the maximum amount of participants, and it would not surprise me if we actually did start to finally break through and break down this area. If Apple has a weak day, and I think on Apple, it's hard to say. Eventually, Apple's going to have a bounce.
Did we catch some news on Apple here? No, I got it trading up 6 points.
Is Apple trading up here? Okay, well, let's go back to the Apple chart then.
I guess that's the thing about doing a live show,
Yeah,
huh?
nice to have it live here. If Apple's trading up here, there obviously is some news breaking. The funny thing is, some of my news filters, I've got at one service I subscribe to in New York who still doesn't have power here, so some of our news filters are a little bit slow. But Apple, this is good. If Apple can start to actually bring this market up, and I think that's why your S&P minis are ticking up, 582.70. So Apple's now up $6. So that is a good thing here, Joel, for the market. Apple needs to hold up because if Apple continues to break down, eventually that S&P might break that 1400 support area. But nice to see that Apple's trading strong, a little bit stronger here in the pre-market now.
Okay, and I think another thing that you have to take into consideration, tomorrow's a big day over here in the United States. I don't know if you know over there in Canada, but we have a presidential we have a presidential election tomorrow.
Really? I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah, there's a lot of there could just be some position squaring today here. I don't think you're going to get a big runaway day either way under 1400. I think on the upside, if you can take out this 1409.50, which stands as the Globex high, you got a little room up to 1414 up there, and above that level, things open up. Well, folks, thank you for being with us during our first live broadcast and suffering through all my little technical difficulties here. But we'll get things going for you soon.
And we will put
any comments.
And just to let you know, we will put a live recorded broadcast up there in about 15 minutes. So if you missed the show, you can still watch it on delay. It'll be up there in about 15 minutes, around 9 o'clock Eastern. Have a great trading session.